Hey, everybody, look who's with me today. Look at this face. You remember him from One Life to Live, Nic Robuck, who played James Ford, but he's now seen in Hearts Under the Olive Tree on Amazon and Plex that came out in late November, and I have him with me today. We're doing a catch-up interview. It's been a while since we've seen each other.
It's been a while.
Been a while. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's nice to see you as well.
And so tell me about this movie. So tell me about you play Jonathan in the movie
I
in
do,
Hearts
yeah.
Under the Olive Tree.
Jonathan is this really kind of fun character. He rides the line between being like sincere and being douchey. And
Because that you're very good at being douchey.
thank you, thank you.
Which is
Yeah, I play
you play
douchey
a
guys and
douchey.
killers frequently,
You
so
do.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever
So
go like, what's that about?
it's everything I'm not, right? It's like you like to play what you're not, and I find comfort in that space. But um, so he's kind of ruining people's plans, and he wants more of the woman he's dating, and it doesn't work out. And when she starts getting herself together, I kind of circle back, but only she's might be
Um,
moving on to somebody else. So I'm spoiling their plans as well, and and
maybe it sounds more like it sounds like a more fun part to play.
yeah, it was really fun. But I didn't want to go so douchey that the audience doesn't like me, isn't rooting for me at all, but also I didn't want it to just seem like he's dumb and he's saying really bad things, but we love him. So I had to ride that line, of like nice and sincere, but also he's a little douchey and maybe he's not right
Uh,
for the lead. It was a lot of fun. It was the perfect set to come back to, really easy, no egos.
and when you saw it back, when you watch it back, what was your takeaway? Were you like,
Well,
oh, isn't
when
bad?
I watch myself, I go straight to my parts. I skip everything else. I'm like, okay, how did
Oh,
I
my
look?
part, my part, my
Oh
part, my
yeah.
part.
Well, not just like me, but I want to get to it. I'm like, I'm hypercritical. I'm like, okay, did I sell it? What it look like? How could I have done better? Oh, which take did they use? So initially, I think the first time I watch myself, I almost can't process it. I'm just like, I'm like tense and muscles and I can't really enjoy it. So I watched it a couple times of, myself. And then um once it was finally released on streaming, my neighbors had all heard about it, right? They're like, oh, tell us when the movie comes. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, all right. So they had a little screening party. And
Oh,
yeah, I know, but that always makes me sweat. I feel like I'm being under microscopic
and
observation.
you're like in the room and they're reacting, and
Yes,
you feel like,
yes.
are they really reacting because they like this, or are they just
Yeah,
faking like,
yeah. And then I'm watching the screen, but I'm also looking around at their faces, and
like this is weird?
yeah. So that's hard, but they loved it. And then I watched the whole movie for the first time. I'm like, this has some really funny lines. Like this was well done. I was really pleasantly surprised. Um, for all intents and purposes, I liked my performance. I always think that I'm like, oh, I could have said that better, or I could have done this different, or I should have been thinking about that. But
Do you know
that's
how
what we are
many
as artists.
actors I have talked to that I am shocked will say, I never watch my work. I want you to know in the 40 years I've been doing this, there's got to be gazillion that have said that to me.
I'm
And
sure.
it's shocked. I'm like, I get you don't want to get in your head and
Yeah.
what, but at some point, don't we all have to like, I'm the same way about even listening to my music.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to hear that take.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
so
It's like,
it's like the creative it's like I don't know, but then at some point you got to rip the band-aid off, and I feel like you have to watch yourself or listen to yourself. You have to, because how do you learn, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, absolutely.
But
And I think it's one thing to watch it after the project is complete, like how did I if you can stomach it, because I think we can always be better, we can always improve, and I don't think you'll under 100% know what those things are until you see it. I think you know yourself best, how you play things best. And even like when I'm putting an audition on tape, the coach will be like, okay, so like let's try it this way, and then I'll watch it. I'm like, oh, that wasn't it, but I know what she's talking about. I'll go right in and do it, But when you're recording something, a movie, and they have Video Village off to the side, the tent where the director's sitting and everybody's watching it, I think going and looking at that can hinder the natural process of like just your reaction, you're being in the moment, you're being spontaneous. If you go look at it and you're like, oh, I should have looked this way, then you're taking that all out. You know, it's planned, it's rehearsed, and I think then it can be a hindrance to the process. That's
What's the self-taping process been like for you since, is it a headache?
um it's for me, it's both, and I've talked a lot about this process. So the piece is for me, and I don't know how much that pro outweighs the cons. For me, it's a lot of work. Once you set up the tape, you know pretty much where your camera needs to be. You've built the little structures that are holding everything else, right? So, it's like this whole setup. But even if you have someone on the screen, you're reacting to it's like green screen acting. You're reacting to stuff that's not there. You're looking at people, there's no one in the room, and I find that really distracting and really hard. And also, it's hard to make the connection to the person, like your reader
You're not
on a computer screen.
right.
Yeah, especially if it's an intimate thing and you need it to feel intimate. Like how does that come across staring at a screen for a camera? When in the room, I can make that connection with a casting director so quick. But I think the biggest thing that I don't like is it feels like your tapes are being sent into the void and you don't know if they're being seen. If they could just come up with something that says like a receipt, like it was watched, someone watched it, you get a receipt back that says it was watched at 12:21 p.m. on Wednesday, I would feel so much better about that process. But because I'm putting in so much work, I prepare for days, I hire a coach, I pay for that, and then I'll spend a lot of time prepping before it, and then the hour recording it if it takes that long, just to not know if anyone's watching it. And when you're in the room like it used to be, right away they'd be like, "That was excellent. I want you to come back for producers today at 2 p.m." That kind of thing. And you don't get that anymore. To me, that's the hardest piece.
I think the hardest piece is kind of, and that goes along with, I think, everything today. Like when I send emails about things, right? And all you want is somebody to respond, yes, I got it.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
I do this all the time when I'm doing the journalism thing. Like I'll say I'm waiting and nobody gets back to me. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, can you just say yes or no? Like,
right,
yes,
right.
you like me
Just
to
acknowledge it,
do or
right?
no, just acknowledge it. And
Yeah,
I feel like we got somewhere in the last couple of years where nobody acknowledges receipt of any email. They feel they don't have to.
right. Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
know, feel like that is very frustrating.
it is. It's frustrating. And I think also as actors, a lot of why we're doing what we're doing is because we have this deep need to feel seen and heard. And then I think that that speaks to our insecurities when you're putting so much work, and you don't have to book the job because that's not what you're there to do. You're there to act in that moment, and that's it. If the job comes, that's icing on the cake. But to be seen and heard in that moment, not by your reading buddy or your acting coach, by the people who need to see it. And then it speaks to our insecurities of not being seen and heard, and that's all we want as
Plays
a performer.
yeah, it just plays into it. Like,
Yeah,
we just
yeah,
want to see, can you let me know that you saw
yes.
this? You know?
Especially when I have murdered the audition and I'm like, I got this. There is no doubt in my mind. Like, I am so confident. I'm waiting for that phone call. My agent's going to call me any minute. I know it's happening, and days go by. And then you hear nothing. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start posting all these on Instagram because I want somebody to see it.
Is there a show? Like, are you watching any streaming television? Is there a show you'd love to like have a role on? Like, where can we put you that you would be happy, that you'd be like, I would be great in that show
Um,
if there
yes,
was a role for you for Nick?
definitely. Um, I really like sinking my teeth into something big and juicy and dramatic. I have been labeled intense a couple of times, and I think that's good and bad. Um, so drama is definitely my bread and
Wasn't
butter.
he a bad guy in Dark Desire?
Oh yes,
I remember that very clearly. I
Yeah.
watched Dark Desire.
I murdered lots of people, but all in the pursuit of love.
Yes, but I can't believe when I looked this back up that that was 2012.
I have to like not think about that
But
stuff.
I'm more upset that I'm like, so I've known you 15 years more?
Yeah. Oh yeah, about 14 years. Yeah.
14 years. I was like, when, how is that 2012? Anyways, you were a bad guy in that.
Yeah. So shows like the things that stick out, if it were still on Ozark, oh, I love that series so much. I have a couple of people in common with Julia Garner. Her godmother wrote Dark Desire, actually. And
Oh, interesting.
yeah, and then I studied with Julia's coach for a little while. So, we kind of have a little de- shorter degrees of separation there. But I think she's fantastic. Jason Bateman is phenomenal. That show, The Last of Us on HBO. I didn't initially want to watch it because I got really sick of The Walking Dead. It was just so repetitive. It was the same thing constantly happening, them being really dumb, being loud, shooting guns, I'm like, all right, I can't watch this anymore. And so initially I was like, I'm not watching that show. And I watched the first episode and I was like, this is really good, but if this is all there is, I'm not gonna do it. So my brother was like, no, it's great. All of the episodes aren't like that. You should watch it. And it is one of the best shows on television. It is so good. The way that they communicate and tell the story of interpersonal relationships and what people go through and the human experience. I'm just all here for it.
When you're going for roles, are they still trying to cast you as like the leading man?
Um,
Do you want to do young leading man or you want to play against that?
no, I like,
Leading man with trouble problems.
yeah, I like that a lot. I'm not, when I was younger, it was definitely lead, lead, lead all the time. Um, and then now more recently, it's leads here and there. But the roles that I do audition for are, um, I think, very me, whether that's the lead or supporting or what have you. Um,
So it
so
doesn't
yeah, I think
have to be
it's
a
a mix.
romantic lead, is what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be a
Yeah, I like the romantic lead, but I truthfully, I feel like that's who I am, but I find that hardest to play. I want to be on the edge of murder and rage and depression and tears and when I play a character because I know I'm full of it. You know what I mean? Like when you prepare for a role like that, you have to get full of it or you're not that character. Whereas with the romantic leads, it's already kind of me. So I feel like I don't need to get full of me already. So I find it harder to prepare for that, if that makes sense.
Kristen's having a baby.
She's having a baby.
Have you been in touch with her at all or?
Oh yeah. She and I are
Oh,
still
no, because she's my bud too. So
okay. Yeah, no, we're thick as thieves. We talk frequently, text. She was out here when she found out that she was pregnant and she took me to lunch and told me. And I know her um fiance Taylor and
did you know him beforehand? Before
I didn't. We're actually both from Indiana.
I
Um
knew that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but no, I didn't know him. They're both 7, 8 years younger than me. So I had moved out here and moved away from from Indiana long before,
Right.
he was doing the same. And
She
but
takes you to lunch and she says, I'm pregnant.
yeah, and at first I thought she was playing a joke, but then I realized she was serious. She was recording me, and I thought that's
Oh,
what she
that's
does.
right.
Yeah, and I said something so off off the cuff, and it was kind of rude because she was already here for like 2 weeks shooting a movie, and I know her fiance, and I love him, and he's a great guy, and if we were close in proximity, we would be best friends. And I said, by who? You know, because I'm thinking you've been here, you know, not even thinking obviously she could get pregnant before and not know till now. I just, you know,
He's like,
stupid
"Oh,
moment. Yeah, by who? And that was not the initial reaction I wanted to give on camera, but that's what happened. And I felt such a bonding experience with her when she told me, and knowing she's pregnant and being a parent myself, and just the journey she has ahead just made me feel so close to her, and I'm really, really excited. I think she's going to be a beautiful, wonderful mother.
I was like, what happened to everybody? They are having kids now.
I know.
I
It's
mean,
weird.
I've known her since she was like 12.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm just so excited, and I'm like, oh my God, it's just so amazing to see her pregnant. Like,
Yeah.
I'm it just doesn't seem like it's the
It's
little
nuts.
girl that I
I know.
now.
So when I was on the show, I can't remember if it was her 18th or it was her 19th birthday that we were celebrating that year that I started. You know, I mean, she was so young and I was already in my
Didn't you audition with her?
I did. Yeah, well, screen
Screen
test it.
test was
Yes.
with Starr.
Yeah. So the original auditions were here with Mark Teschner from General Hospital. Um, so I did a pre-read, then he had me come back in and read to send tape to producers. And then in the meantime, I also auditioned for General Hospital. So then I heard about the screen test in New York, and they were like, they want you to come, you're going to do that. But then also General Hospital was like, oh, we want you to come back and read. I'm like, oh my God, I've got both these things, and I've been waiting so long for something soap-wise to pop off. And so I had to do the screen test, obviously. But even after the screen test, I was like, oh, well, what about the general? They're like, no, 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 you screen tested, you signed a contract. If they choose, you can't do the general. I'm like, oh, okay. So anyway, in New York, Thad Luckenbill is a really good friend of mine and ours. And I asked him, I was like, hey man, how does this go? He's like, oh, it's not that bad. It's like you, two or three other guys. It's, you know, it's really low key. Don't get stressed. I'm like, okay, okay, I can handle that. That's not bad. I'd never done a screen test before at this point. And the day of, um, they had like this rehearsal hall in New York in the studio. And I was one of the early ones. I think there were two or three of us at the time. And then guy after guy just kept walking in. I was like, oh my, how many of us are there? It was like 8 or 9 of us
Oh God.
screen testing. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and they all start talking to each other and joking and what they're going to do and who they're going to live with and all this stuff. And I start journaling about the character. I'm running lines. I am like super focused and I'm not entertaining any of that. And Frank calls us up to set and he does the blocking, right? And so I'm writing it all down. And then everybody goes back down. They're like, okay, we're going to take lunch. And I was like, I don't care about lunch. I'm staying up here. I said the lines, walked the blocking until it was just second nature. So I was just like, I'm going to be super prepared. So I just did it over and over and over and over. And then they were coming back from lunch. Frank was one of the first people up to the stage. And he was like, oh, Nic Robuck's here. He's going to go first. And I'm like, no, 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 wait, no, 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 I'm not supposed to go first. And he was like, you're here, let's do that. Like, oh my God. So Kristen, she was so supportive. She was like, okay, now it's multicam. You have to do this thing where like, if you turn, you have to like face me directly. You can't be like down of me or up of me. You got to be like what they call vis-a-vis, face to
See,
face.
that's the hardest part to me.
Yes.
The whole thing of soaps was the three can't like if you don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Look,
Yep. And you're light. Like if you can't see it,
right, and
you
you're
like
like,
lean a little bit until it hits your face, you know, so stuff like that. And she was like, it's okay. And she'd run lines with me and so supportive, you know, even though I felt like I was going to jump out of my body, she was, you know, keeping me calm and really supportive. And I felt that we had this connection. I was like, I think she likes doing this scene with me. And they told us we were only going to do it once. And I got to do it like 3 or 4 times. So I felt like that was a really good sign too. Yeah.
huh? So then when did you find out you had the role?
Oh my gosh. So
That
this,
was I remember this. This is coming
okay.
back to me.
All right. So I leave the studio,
You
right?
left right.
I'm hugging people. I'm so like high on adrenaline. I'm so relieved it's over, but I'm also so proud I did such a good, I'm like hugging. I'm like, thank you, you know, thank you. I'm trying to go get my stuff and leave. And in the contract, they had like 10 days to notify you of you getting the role. And so I stayed in New York. A friend of mine was on Broadway. He took me to go see a show that night, and I keep like checking my phone. Did my agent text me? Did call like every 3 minutes, right? But I'm still really confident. I'm like, I think I got it. I think I got it. So day after day goes by, and I'm still trying to keep that, positive feeling inside. And it's starting to get a little harder to the more days in between the audition and where I was at. And day 10 comes and goes, and I don't hear anything. No, I'm so sorry. Yes, I think it's day 10 comes and goes. I don't hear anything. Then the next day, I'm disappointed because I'm like, I was so sure it was mine. There was without a shred of doubt. And the next day, my agent calls me and he says, "Hey, I need you to come to my office. You've got to fill out this paperwork from your audition for reimbursements because they give you per diem." And I was like, "Oh, I thought I did that already." He was like, "Yeah, they didn't receive it, so just come up here and fill this out, and we'll get it taken care of." And I was like, "Oh, okay," didn't have any other news for me, so I was pretty disappointed. And I drove up to his office, and he's kind of small talk, and I'm trying to hide the disappointment. He gives me this clipboard, right, with these pieces of paper stapled together. It says ABC and per diem. So he's like, "You don't have to fill anything. I'll just like sign the bottom." So I signed the first one, flip
Oh,
it. There's another one. I sign it, and then I flip to the third page, and he wrote in permanent marker, "You got it!" Exclamation point! Exclamation point! And I was like, I just got goosebumps telling the story.
oh my
I
God.
go, "Shut up!" And he was like, "Yes, you got it." And I was like, I mean, it is so ecstatically happy. I can't even tell you that moment.
Oh
And
my God, that is amazing. No, you never told me this part. I
okay,
remember this
yeah,
part of the story.
I love that. I have the piece of paper in my nightstand
I would
still.
frame it.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yes. And so then he was like, "Should we call Tyler?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's call him." And he was in a business meeting. My husband's in finance. He's a wealth manager. And so I text him. I say, "Hey, I need to call you." He's like, "I'm in a meeting." I'm like, "It's really important. Like, can you step out for a second?" And he's like, "Okay." So I call him. I'm like, "Listen, I'm trying to fill out this paperwork for these per diems, and and I got the job." And he's like, "Shut up!" And he said the exact same thing. And I was like, "I know, I got it." And he's like, "Oh my God, congratulations!" And then yeah, the rest is history.
Oh my God. And then you went, wait, where were you guys then?
So in
Where was
LA,
Taylor?
yep, in LA in
Right.
West LA,
That's right.
and we got
That's right.
tiny small apartment on the Upper West Side. So I was bicoastal. I was flying back and forth just every chance I got. A lot of travel.
A lot of travel.
Yeah.
And I just remember you had a huge challenge ahead of you because Starr was so popular with Cole.
Yes.
And it's like, and they loved that song.
Loved them.
And I
They
was
had a
like, and
child, everything.
I was like, oh God, this guy is gonna have nothing to do with your acting. I'm just like, the
It's just
audience, it's the audience. The
yeah,
soap audience doesn't like change.
yeah,
Hate it. Especially when they're protective of like their girl
yeah.
they've watched grow up. And I'm like, oh man, this guy's gonna have such a they're gonna be so but you won everybody over, which
I
I felt you would because you were so good. And I was like, oh, this is good. But I knew it would take a minute because you have to get them to come along with you when
yeah,
you're like the new guy who they don't want to see with their person.
yeah, yeah. You've got to gain their support, their sympathy, all of it. And I felt like the writers on the show did a good job of telling his backstory and with the abusive father and missing the brothers and all that stuff. And um it's so funny looking back. I wish I had played some of it differently, knowing what I know now about performance and telling a story and so on and so forth. But I'm really proud of all of that.
Sure.
And in the first week, you know, you're so saturated. They have to shoot all these episodes because when they introduce you, you're on so much. So I think it was like the second or the third day. First day, I had like 2 pages. It was with David Gregory, and he was in a coma in a bed. And
Is
I
that the first time you met David at that point?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And I have to pour my heart out to him. This is the long lost brother, and it's the first time I've seen him in years, and he's in a hospital bed, and so that emotion had to come through. It was the first time I'm on a sound stage, all of this stuff. It was so big to me, and So that went well. But then like the third day, Kristen and I had like the whole day of scenes. I had 60 pages of dialogue. And I was staying at some friend's apartment on the Upper West Side, and I was using a humidifier. And I don't know, something happened with my vestibular system, and I got vertigo. So I'm popping Dramamine, and I'm so tired, and I'm trying to learn these lines. And I'm like, why? Why does this have to happen on my first week of this show? So I come in and I feel like a rock star. I'm ready to go. And we shoot this one scene, and I'm like, oh, I drop a line. I'm like, okay, no big deal. I know it. You know, I'm confident that I know it. And then I go, it's like answering a phone. And then I'm like, oh my God, what's my line? And Kristen goes, she could see it happening. She's like, it's okay. This happens to everybody. Don't freak out. Just calm down. And I was like, wait, I really don't know what my line is. And I like had to look at them, and it was a long day. And Frank was not thrilled. I went home and I thought I was getting fired. And I'm like, I moved to New York and I'm married. What am I doing? And he's gonna fire me. And it all turned out well, but that was a really stressful first week on the show.
I bet.
Yeah.
And then when did you meet Lenny? When did Lenny Platt come into the story?
He,
He was the third brother in,
he
right?
was, yeah.
He was not there.
I, I met him in person because he was doing the musical, which was kind of taking place before my character started. So they kind of plucked him out of the musical to play the brother. And I think it was only supposed to be temporarily. And then later, the Ford brothers gained such popularity that they, wanted him on contract. And we like, we need him. This is the thing. And Lenny and I bonded quickly. I mean, they did such a good job, one, casting the three of us, but our personalities were so copacetic. It was like long lost brothers, really. Like, it we still have a bond all these years. It's like no time has passed when we see each other. And
What is he
yeah.
doing now?
He has this really cool, I don't know if you'd call it a production company, but they do like immersive film experiences. It's called Barbecue Films. So for example, one of the first ones they did was the movie Fifth Element, where they screen the movie, they do it in a place, they dress it up like the set. Some actors will come out and play some of the characters within the movie in front of it, if that makes sense. They did like Ninja Turtles from the 80s. They did Beetlejuice. I mean, they've done them all these great movies that people love, these classic cult films. So he does a lot of that. He's still acting. But I think, the last couple of years have been tricky in terms of with COVID and all of that. But yeah, he's happily married, does a lot of traveling, and
And David got married.
David's married. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
But she was with him a long time. They were
Very long time.
long time.
I was surprised how long they'd been together when we were on the show. I mean, you guys aren't
Were
married
they
yet?
already together when at One Life they were together?
Yeah.
I remember this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So finally, and actually, Lenny and I, it was a COVID wedding, so we had to do it through Zoom. But Lenny and I and his wife, and we all got to watch it together, and it was a really special
David's
moment.
wedding, you mean?
Yeah.
It was a COVID wedding over the
Oh,
Zoom?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, they had family there, but then everyone else who really wasn't immediate family, and they also did it in Ohio where Jen's family is. Her mother
that's
wasn't in
right.
good health, and they wanted to be there so the mom didn't have to travel. Um, and so they did it there, and we got to see it on Zoom. Yeah.
See, you were there till the end of One Life,
Yep.
which was the worst ever to have to. I came out, but I don't believe you were there the day they did a press junket. And it was in like November of before it went off the air. Because didn't it go off the air in like
Was that along with the people photo shoot? Do you know? Because I think that there were half of us didn't get to partake in that. I think it was like a lot of the mainstays from over the years. So I don't think any of the Ford brothers were.
I don't think the Ford brothers were there. And I remember coming out and then I interviewed like Bob Woods and Hillary B. Smith and Erica Sladzak and Kristen was there, Alderson with Cassie DePaiva,
Okay.
and it was all that. And I just remember it was, and everybody on the plane, because they flew a bunch of us journalists out, ABC did.
Okay.
And I was the one true soap guy, and all the other press were more of the mainstream. So they're like, "Are you gonna be okay through this?" And I'm like, "No." So they were all like, "Is this gonna be, are you gonna be okay?" Because I had such a connection with everybody for so many decades. It's like, how am I gonna go do this?
Yeah.
Those interviews are on, you can see them on YouTube or on Vimeo or whatever, but they were it was horrible. Horrible. I think I made everybody cry, and we all
Oh,
cried. It was horrible. And so tell me what it was like for you. First of all, I remember when they canceled the show, which was ridiculous because the show was like in third place when they canceled it.
yeah. Yeah. I remember how they told us. They pulled us into, um, I want to say we were in some kind of auditorium. Oh, it was at the View. We were in the View soundstage. That's where it was. They took
And they
us over
piped
there.
in Barry and Franz, right?
Yeah. Yep. So we were like, oh God, what is this? And everyone was like, I think it's cancellation, so on and so forth. So we go in. All my children is like kind of zoomed in as well, their whole cast, and they make the announcement that they're canceling the show. I was a touch ambivalent at that time. I did 220 episodes in 2.5 years or something like that. That was a lot. Um, but my career was just starting, and I, really wanted to be back in California with my husband, and I wanted a job there. So, on one hand, I was initially very sad, but I was also excited. I'm like, okay, that frees me up. All possibilities are possible now. And because when you're on contract on a soap, it's hard to get out to do other things, because the schedule, how they shoot, and when you book something, it's like, okay, it's shooting in 2 days, and they can't say, oh yeah, well you were supposed to shoot here on the soap, so but never mind, you go do that other thing, that doesn't happen. Um, so initially, that's kind of how I felt, and then the last scenes were written between Kristen and I, between Starr and James, and we were in the rehearsal hall, and I couldn't say the lines out loud, or I was gonna break down. I'm like, I can't. I like they were like, well, you need to run the lines, and then I'd start, and I'm like, I can't. It's just gonna come out like a flood. And I was kind of surprised by that. It was this really special, um, insulated time of personal growth, becoming an adult, making these friends, bonding, seeing each other every day. And, it was the biggest thing that I had done at that time. It was my first professional acting job, getting paid well. I'm like, I did it. And it was coming to an end. And that was all coming to a realization when we needed to shoot those final scenes. And then we get to set, and they start shooting the scenes, and I'm a mess. And I cannot keep it together. I didn't want James to look that emotional. I just couldn't help it. And I was really surprised by that. And so I don't really love how those looked.
But
But
remember, people, how did he exit?
so they broke up.
I know. I thought
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah. And I wanted me to hold it together for those scenes until I closed the door and then lost it, but it just didn't happen like that. I just had so much in me, and I was just sad to see the separation of all of us, this unit we had become happening. Some people were coming to California, some people were staying in New York, and I knew it was this end to this era of such a magical time. And yeah, so those final scenes were gut
how
wrenching.
was Kristen after those scenes? Was she
um yeah, she she was pretty emotional, it being something that she had done for so long. And then there was talk of Prospect Park, and Frank had conversations asking people if they wanted to join, and I wanted to stay, but I knew it wasn't going to be the same thing as, being on a network television show. And I'm like, I don't want to necessarily stay in New York for that. I need to focus on my family and try to make something happen in LA. And Kristen was kind of teeter-tottering whether or not she'd do it, and decided not to, and she was moving to LA, so that was great, you know? Everybody who moved to LA, that was great, but then my brothers stayed in New York, and, that was hard.
When did the child come into play? When did you
Um,
have the baby or child? And can we
oh
say
boy, yeah, my son. We tried for like a year and a half adoption initially, starting in like 2013, I think.
was it
So
frustrating as a
that was
gay
that was
couple?
that was very frustrating. We were doing an open adoption. It was with this agency, and it wasn't cheap. And the hard thing is that you get these mothers who think that they don't want the child, that like, oh, I can't afford it, or just whatever the reason is, right? Um, that they want to find a family that can raise their baby in the way that they always hoped that they could and can't. So you meet these people, and it's kind of like a dating site. You match with them, you talk, and you have these interviews, and then they decide and they tell your agency, oh, hey, we really like them. We want to give the baby to this couple. So that happened three or four times with us, and they all fell through. And most of the time at the very last minute. And that's really hard. Um, so we took a pause and we were like, well, maybe we're not supposed to be parents. Um, and then our financial situation changed, and my husband Tyler said, "What do you think about IVF? We have our own baby." And I was like, "Yes, that sounds way better than adopting somebody else's baby anyway. You know, I have always wanted to have my own child." So we went through that process. And the first time we did an implementation, so you have an egg donor that's separate than the surrogate, and you know that's a long story, but so there aren't any blood ties, and we picked both, and and that was in 2015, excuse me, 2014, and so we got pregnant in 2014, and our son was born September of 2015, 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
8 years ago, yep. So then my whole life and my whole world changed.
Is fatherhood hard or great, or how do you feel about it?
Um, it's the best way to describe it is all of those things. It is when I watched him come into his life to be, you know, be born, come onto this planet, seeing that moment of him taking his first breath was the most heart-opening thing I've ever seen in my life. You have all this instant love, but then you also have all this instant fear,
You're
fear of everything.
like, am I
Of,
gonna screw this up?
yeah, are you know, you don't want anything to happen to them. Am I going to be a good dad? Am I going to make the same mistakes my dad did? You know, just all this stuff. It just you love something so much you're afraid to ruin it. You don't want to taint it. You don't want to scar it. You don't want to do anything, right? Um, but then you have the day to day, which are beautiful and amazing and rewarding. And then they're also awful sometimes and challenging. And but it's all like I refer to him as my teacher. He's holding up a mirror to me, you know, saying, you're doing this, you're doing this. Think of a different way to do that, you know? So it is the most I journal every morning, and I think I'm
Do
not
you have,
religious.
does he have a name?
Yeah, his name is Staten, Staton.
Staten.
Staten,
How
yes.
did you come up with that?
Actually, it's Lenny's brother-in-law's name,
Lenny
but
Platt.
yeah, and he told me back when we were on the show together, he was like, "Oh, you know, my back then it was Naomi, it was just his girlfriend. Naomi's brother's name, we're gonna go see her brother Staten." I was like, "Whoa, whoa, what's his name?" He was like, Staten. He was like, "That's a cool ass name, isn't it?" I was like, "That is the coolest name I've ever heard." So I like put that in my pocket, you know, in the event that maybe later in life I have a son and propose that as the name. And
And Tyler was good with it?
he was, yeah, we were kind of toying with some ideas between like my first and middle name and his first and middle name, kind of mixing them up and doing that whole thing. And I said, "Well, what do you think about Staten?" And he was like, "Ooh, I like that." So we let it sit and simmer for a little while, and we both, that would be his name. Um, but yeah, so going back a little bit,
I can't believe you're a dad.
I'm a dad. Yeah, I'm a dad to an 8-year-old. It's even weird for me to say out loud, and I've been doing it for 8
8 years.
years. Yeah. Yeah,
So you'll give Kristen advice then.
I hope so, if she'll take it. I thank the universe every morning, for my best 2 roles that I'll ever play, his father and Tyler's husband. And so that's also kind of been my, New Year's resolution to play those roles the best that I can, leave no stone unturned, and, to just really earn the Oscar for both those.
The Oscar for those.
Yes, exactly.
Did you get married, you guys, early? Then when did you get married?
Yeah, so we got married in 2008. So we
Before that was
yeah, so we were just gonna have, like, a commitment ceremony in Maui with our families, and, right at that time, they had changed the law in California that same-sex couples were allowed to get married. And so there was this short window where they were just marrying everybody in West Hollywood. And our friend, was the mayor of West Hollywood. Um, and he offered to marry us, and we took him up on it. And then Prop 8 happened. And they were like, no, you can't get married. But they weren't going to rescind all those marriages. Those people were grandfathered in. So that
right,
was
you
us.
can't
We were
rescind it,
grandfathered
right?
in. Yep.
Mhm.
Until the law changed when Barack Obama was president. So it took that long for that to happen. So yeah, we got married in that little window, luckily. I've been happily married ever since for 15 and a half years. Actually, next week and a half will be the anniversary of our first date 17 years ago.
My God.
Yeah, crazy.
Amazing. Now, was there a fear for you, like that to come out, or people find out you were gay in these roles that you were doing early on in your career? You had to be
Yeah,
right.
I took off my wedding ring. I hid it all when I got One Life to Live. I didn't tell anybody, and it was the first big thing that I had done, and I didn't want my being gay and married to ruin what might come. So yeah, I tried to hide it as best I could, and it felt awful, even with Kristen, I was trying my best not to let it slip. And I think she and I, she'll tell you this story, but she always makes fun of my clothes, but I was dressed like I lived in California in Manhattan. And I had like shorts on and a button up and one of those kind of straw woven hats with the band around it. And she was like, "Oh my God, what is he wearing? Is he gay?" And I'm like, "No, this is how everybody dresses in California." So we go to lunch and we're talking, and she's talking about finding an apartment, and I said, "Oh yeah, no, we went looking for an apartment." And she heard the
E-
we, and she was like, "Ah, he's dating somebody, or he's married, or he's gay, or something." And yeah, one by one, I tried to let people know, but I was like, please don't tell everybody. I don't want it to be this thing all over set that, oh, Nic Robuck's gay, and I, some people found out that I didn't tell, so I knew somebody was saying something. But yeah, that sucked. And actually, um, prior to getting the show, I had representation that told me to hide it. That if one of the other reps at the management company found out that I was gay, they would drop me as a client. I mean, it was just, there was a lot of that culture back then that was scary. Felt really bad.
It's a terrible way to feel too. Like you're
Oh
having
yeah,
to try to do like act and do all this, and meanwhile you're having to worry about, will they find out about this, that, will it come
yeah,
out? Who's
yeah,
gonna, what is the perception of it gonna be?
yeah.
I'm so many of actors that I know struggle with it. Do you feel it's a very different time for yourself now, or do you feel it's not?
I do. I do. I think that there is a lot of I mean, I wouldn't say a lot. There's acceptance of being a gay actor nowadays. There's more gay content. Not that a lot of it's really that good, unfortunately. Even some of the stuff that's coming out recently,
I
I'm like,
agree, and I
we got to
think
do better.
you got to do better. I
Yeah.
agree.
Um, I think it's becoming more accepted. Like, okay, there's gay actors. We need to, in um, be inclusive. But I still think it can be a hindrance. And even when my agent says, "Oh, do you want to audition for gay roles?" It gives me pause. What if I get on some great big show playing a gay character? Is that going to ruin the rest of it down the road, you know? And so yeah, there's still this kind of turmoil with it. And by and large, I really don't give a shit. You know, like people know I'm gay anymore. I used to hide it. I didn't want Kristen taking my photos. I didn't want her posting on anything on Instagram. I didn't want there to be some moment where maybe I didn't look my butchest self and she caught it and sent it on Instagram. Oh, he looks gay. You know, I just didn't want any of that happening. So I was very protective now. I don't really care that much. I mean, I know who I am, and
I mean,
yeah,
I think, yeah. And I was going to say, there's been this debate in a lot of recently, read a lot of articles about, straight actors playing gay roles and the gay actors not playing the gay role, and shouldn't whoever's best for the role get the role? Or how do you feel about it? Do you feel
yeah.
if they role a gay person should play their role because they have more of an experience with it? Or how do, or do you, or how, what's your take on it? Because I read different well-known actors speak on this subject, and it's been
Yeah,
mixed.
I think it's mixed for me. I don't really have a definitive way of thinking about it. I'd like to think that if there's a gay role, that they're going to audition the best straight actors and the best gay. And if out of those, the straight character or actor is the better one for the role, I think I would be okay with that. And I also think I would be okay with that as long as they're an ally, you know, and not someone who behind closed doors is you know, gay basher or
Shitting
what
on,
have
yeah,
you. Yeah,
bash.
yeah, but they want to play a gay because they want to get an award for it, or you know, something self-serving. Um, but also at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe if you have a gay role, that a gay actor should play it, you know, because it's not about the playing gay; it's about playing the character, right? And and also, if gay actors can't really be looked at to play straight characters, then why should we be looking at straight characters to play gay ones? I don't I
And exactly, that's the debate. Exactly
Yeah,
what you're saying.
yeah. So if you give pause casting a gay person as a straight character, then I think you should give pause casting a straight actor as a gay character. Um, yeah, I think they go hand in hand. Can't be one without the other.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, it's kind of a toss up. I think it would have to be case by case basis for me, I think.
My question for you is, would you ever want to do another soap that is still on the air, or you kind of not want to go there?
You know, I used to think no. Um, I used to think no because it's hard. It's
Demanding and
hard kind of you know, it's repetitive, and as an actor, you want to be fulfilled creatively, um, and that can be challenging. You know, it's like, oh, where you just kind of reciting, you're catching viewers up who only tune in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you know, and they miss Tuesday and Thursday. So you're recapping in your dialogue to someone, oh, well, you did this and that happened, and when you went to court and that, you know, it's like, how do you? But that's also a challenge, you know. I mean, I think it's all the way that you look at it. So I used to think no, but I think now, um, I just want to act. I like being on set. I like working with actors and I want to get paid for it. So I'm super open. Yeah.
Mark's still at General Hospital.
Mark is still at General Hospital. And I think he might still be a fan of mine.
I think he's a fan. So you never know.
Yeah. You never know. You never know. I'll let the universe decide.
And
Oh,
what do you remember about working with John Musy Ship?
um, well, I loved John, you know, from previous projects. You know, when I was a kid, he was the dad in The Neverending Story. And then when I was in high school and Dawson's Creek was on and everything was so salacious and, you know, that whole period and he played the dad on there. I was like, no way that dude's gonna play our dad. That's awesome. You know, and but then he was also the Flash and all this other historic stuff about him. And um, I was really excited. And my agent knew him personally, had represented him before earlier in his career. And So when he came on to play our dad, we were just blown away. He brought something to the table for all of us and taught us so much and kept us on our toes, you know? And he showed acting in a way that I don't think any of us had seen or approached it before. You know, he's truly a craftsman.
All right. So in closing, your hopes for 2024 are,
You mean career-wise or just in general?
I'll give you career in general.
Okay, career. 2024, I would love to be a lead character on a successful series and get paid really well for it, and it shoots in California.
Why,
I
you've
would,
never had that happen?
I know. Well, I want to be close to my family if I
Right,
can.
right now, I know.
And then I would love to be in like an ensemble movie that's kind of like one of those award season buzzy type of movies.
Fuzzy. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, where there's so
And
many great actors in it.
A24 from A24.
Yes, A24, the winner of them all. Okay. Um, I so career wise, that's what I would love to happen. I'd like to work. I want to work. I want to get paid well for it. I want to be seen and heard.
And then real life.
Real life, I want to play those most important roles the best that I can, husband and father. And I want to continue to believe and have faith in myself and be the best person I can be, um, and keep the people in my life who I value and our friendships and my family and chosen family and blood family close, and um, stay healthy. Above all else, stay healthy.
Well, Nic, thank you so much for taking some time today. It was great to catch up and see you again. Everybody check out Hearts Under the Olive Tree. You can stream it on Amazon and Plex, correct?
Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
And of course, we'll be looking forward to your other projects. I'm sure 2024 is going to be a good one for you.
Absolutely. From your lips to the
Let's
universe.
check out we're putting it out in the universe. All right, Nic, have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. It's nice to see
Yeah,
you.
nice to see you.